He was the only one on duty that night, a veteran ranger, 20 years in those woods. He knew every sound, every shadow, every path by heart. But sometime after midnight, something changed. The radio went silent, the forest grew still, and when they found his flashlight at dawn, it was still on, pointing at something no one could explain. This is what the park ranger saw that night.
귀에 쏙 들고 싶다면 좋아요 눌러주고 구독해주세요. 당신의 좋아요 하나 우리에게 큰 힘이 됩니다. If you enjoy these real stories, leave a like and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.
The first time I saw the light, I thought it was a lantern, nothing more. A drifting glow between the pines, swaying gently, too low to be the moon, and too still to be a person's flashlight. I was the only ranger assigned to the eastern ridge that week, stationed near Girison's old path, where no one hiked anymore. They said the forest was haunted. That wasn't unusual in Korea. Every valley had its stories, but the locals spoke of this place in half whispers, eyes averted. The elders called it the Dokabe's Hollow. I laughed the first time I heard it. That was months ago. I don't laugh anymore. It had been raining for 3 days straight. The trails turned to mud. The air smelled of pine sap and rust. Around midnight, I left my cabin to check the boundary sensors motion alarms used to scare off bears. The fog was thick, wrapping the forest in pale silk. When I reached marker 12, I heard a hollow tapping, like wood against stone. Slow, deliberate. Then the light appeared again, floating between the trees. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. The tapping stopped. The light drifted closer. I could see it now. It wasn't a lantern. It pulsed faintly, breathing as if alive. The mist curled around it. I felt something watching me from behind the glow. A shape, half seen, like a figure wearing a mask carved from burned wood. I took one step forward. The ground sank beneath me. A hand cold, wet, and heavy caught my wrist. I froze. A voice spoke from the dark. "You shouldn't look." I yanked free and fell backward into the mud. The light vanished. Only rain and the whisper of trees remained. My heart was a drum in my chest. I stayed there for what felt like an hour, afraid to breathe. When I finally stood, my watch had stopped. 12:07, the same time I left the cabin. When I returned, my boots left no footprints on the steps. I checked twice. Nothing. As if I hadn't gone outside at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the wood sounded like footsteps circling the cabin. Every shadow stretched too long. At one point, I thought I heard tapping against 3 knocks on the window. But when I turned, all I saw was my reflection staring back, pale and wide-eyed, and behind it for a moment, a faint blue glow. I told myself it was just fatigue. The forest plays tricks on tired minds. But even now as I write this, I can smell that same wet earth, that same iron scent. And sometimes when the wind slides through the eaves, I swear I hear the voice again closer this time, whispering in Korean words I can't fully understand, except for one. I awoke before dawn, heart still drumming from a dream I couldn't remember. The window fogged from my breath, and in the faint grey outside, the forest looked suspended, a world held in silence before the day began. I tried to convince myself that last night had been nothing, light refraction, exhaustion. But when I opened the door to step outside, I found something half buried in the mud by the porch. It was a mask, a crude thing, carved from blackened wood. The features were distorted, long eyes slanted upward, teeth filed into sharp points. The grain of the wood seemed burned, the edges still glistening with moisture. At first, I thought someone had left it as a prank, maybe one of the younger rangers trying to spook me. But when I lifted it, the mud beneath was dry, as if it hadn't rained at all where it lay. I turned it over. Inside, carved along the inner rim, were 5 Hangul letters, etched roughly as though by fingernail. I dropped it. That afternoon, I radioed the main station, asking if anyone else had been patrolling the ridge overnight. No one had. The operator's voice cracked slightly when I mentioned the mask. You found it near your cabin? Yes. You should put it back. Where you found it. Don't bring it inside. The line cut abruptly. Static swallowed his words. By sunset, clouds rolled in again, painting the mountains in bruised tones. I stood outside the cabin, with the mask still lying where it had fallen, half sunken in the earth. The air smelled like wet bark and iron. For a long time I just watched it, wondering why I felt drawn, almost compelled, to touch it again. That night, the tapping returned, louder. From beneath the floorboards, 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. I grabbed my flashlight and crouched low, heart pounding. The sound stopped when I reached the edge of the rug, and then the voice came again, soft, right beside my ear. Why did you look? I froze. The cabin felt too small, the walls breathing. The light flickered. For a split second, I saw movement. Something crouched by the window, back hunched, face pressed against the glass. 2 eyes glowing faintly blue, the same color as the lantern in the fog. When I blinked, it was gone. I ran outside, boots sinking in mud, shouting into the trees, "Who's out there?" The forest answered only with rain. My flashlight caught something glinting ahead. The mask again, though I could have sworn I left it by the porch. Now it hung from a branch, swaying gently. That's when I heard the laughter. Faint, childlike, echoing through the woods, except there were no children for miles. It rose and fell like the wind, but didn't fade with distance. It surrounded me. Then everything went silent. I don't know how long I stood there. When I finally returned to the cabin, soaked and shaking, the mask was back on the porch. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. That burnt grin, those hollow eyes, and behind them, something moving, ancient and curious. By morning, I made a decision. I would hike down to the village. I needed to know what this thing was and why it seemed to know me. The trail wound through pines slick with mist. Birds were silent. Even the river below seemed muted. I reached the old footbridge just as the fog thickened again. That's where I saw the woman. She stood at the far end, barefoot, wearing a pale hanbok that looked centuries old. Her hair was long, black as ink. She didn't move until I spoke. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Her head turned slightly, but her eyes didn't focus on me. She looked past me, as though seeing through the forest itself. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "He's waiting where the light bleeds." I stepped closer. "Who's waiting?" She smiled faintly. "The one you looked for, the one you already saw." Before I could respond, she was gone. The fog rolled forward, and where she'd stood was only empty air and the faint smell of burning pine. I ran the rest of the way down. The village was smaller than I remembered, maybe a dozen houses now. Most looked abandoned. At the market, I found an old man sitting by a stove, sipping makgeolli from a metal cup. His face was creased.
계속 듣고 싶다면 좋아요 눌러주고 구독해주세요. 당신의 좋아요 하나 우리에게 큰 힘이 됩니다. If you enjoy these real stories, leave a like and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.
Eyes dull but sharp beneath the ears. When I mentioned the mask, his hand trembled. "You shouldn't have touched it," he said. "That mask belonged to the guardian, the one who keeps balance. Balance of what? Between us and them, between waking and dream. Once disturbed, the dark Arby comes not as a trickster, but as a reckoning. He told me that long ago, a temple once stood in that forest, a shrine built to honor an ancient spirit that guarded the mountain's soul. The monks had vanished one winter, all except one, who was found weeks later, wandering barefoot. repeating the same phrase over and over. "He wears my face now." The villagers buried the shrine, sealed the old path, and left the mask in the soil as an offering, a warning never to wake what slept there. I didn't tell him I had already seen it awake. When I returned to the cabin, night was falling again. The forest had gone utterly still, as if holding its breath. The mask was gone. Only the dry imprint of its shape remained in the mud. Inside, my reflection in the window looked wrong. It smiled when I didn't, and when I turned away, the voice whispered again, closer, clearer. "Now you'll wear it. I don't remember sleeping." One moment I was standing by the window, the next I was outside, barefoot, in the cold mud. The dawn just beginning to burn the edges of the fog. My body felt heavy, as if I'd walked miles in my sleep. There were footprints, dozens, circling the cabin, weaving in and out of the tree line, all of them mine. The forest was too quiet. Even the air seemed to pause. I called out, half hoping the echo would answer. It didn't. At the foot of the ridge, something shimmered, a faint line of blue light winding between the roots like veins beneath the soil. I crouched. It pulsed faintly, leading uphill toward the old shrine site the villager had mentioned. The air smelled of burnt resin and something older, like ash trapped inside bark. Against reason, I followed. The ridge path was steep and twisted, eaten by moss. I kept thinking I heard someone walking ahead, a soft scrape, then stillness. Every time I stopped, it stopped too. By the time I reached the clearing, my heart was beating too fast for the climber alone to blame. The shrine was gone. Only a circle of blackened stones remained. In the center stood something half-buried, a wooden post carved with worn Hangul characters that I couldn't read. Hanging from it was a second mask, smaller than the first, cracked through the jaw. When I touched it, a wind rose suddenly, hard enough to bend the trees, and then I saw them. Shapes, half-formed, stepping between the fog. They didn't move like people. Too smooth, too fluid. One wore a straw hat that seemed to grow from its head. Another's arms hung like cloth, lengthless, folding into air. I couldn't see faces, only shifting blue light beneath what might have been skin. I stumbled backward, but the ground didn't feel real anymore. The trees seemed to breathe, and the air itself rippled like water. A voice broke through, not human, but layered, like many tones speaking through one mouth. "You came where silence remembers. I wanted to run. My legs wouldn't move. We watched when you laughed at the stories," it said. "We waited when you forgot the old names. You called us shadow. You called us myth. Yet you walk on our bones." The world tilted. My knees hit the earth. My vision blurred. For a moment, I saw flashes. A village on fire, monks kneeling before a wooden idol, the mountains split open with light pouring from its veins. The images burned through my skull like fever. When I opened my eyes again, it was dusk. I was back at the cabin. My clothes were dry, my boots clean. My hands smelled faintly of smoke. I found a note on the table, written in my own handwriting. "The shrine is open. The mask chooses." I don't remember writing it. That night, the wind carried whispers, not in one voice, but hundreds. They murmured from the walls, from beneath the floor, from inside my own breath. Sometimes they said my name. Other times, they spoke words that weren't mine at all, syllables that felt wrong in my mouth when I tried repeating them. By midnight, I started to lose track of time. Every clock ticked differently. My radio flickered on by itself, whispering fragments of sound, laughter, rain, footsteps, then silence. I began recording what I saw, what I heard, in a journal. The words changed when I looked away. Whole sentences rearranged themselves. One page now reads, "He watches from the ridge. Do not follow the song." But I don't remember writing about any song. 3 days passed. I stopped counting hours. The food tasted like ash. My own reflection grew unfamiliar. Eyes darker, skin paler, like something hollowed out behind my face. I started hearing music at night, a low drum beat echoing from the forest, steady and distant. On the 4th night, I followed it. The moon hung low and red. The forest opened into a clearing I didn't recognize, though I knew the ridge by heart. A circle of stone surrounded a tree, tall, leafless, its bark blackened and scarred. Beneath it, the ground glowed faintly blue. And there they were again, dozens of them standing in silence, their shapes flickering between human and something else. They carried lanterns that burned without fire. Their shadows moved on their own, writhing slowly across the ground. At the center stood one taller than the rest, wearing the mask I'd found. He turned toward me. The forest dimmed. "You see us now as we were," he said, his voice neither male nor female. "Before your kind forgot. Before you built over what you feared." I tried to speak, but no sound came. "You dug up our names. You disturbed the pact. Now the hollow must fill." He reached toward me, and for a heartbeat, I saw what lay beneath the mask, not a face, but a mirror. My reflection stared back, smiling, bleeding from the eyes. I ran. Branches tore my arms, the ground shifting beneath each step. I could still hear the drums, faster now, and laughter behind them, endless, echoing, twisting through the trees. When I reached the cabin, dawn was breaking. The door was open. Inside, the journal was gone. In its place lay the mask, clean and dry, waiting on the table. There was writing on the wall, carved deep into the wood. "You looked too long." I dropped to my knees. Outside, the forest was whispering again, 1,000 quiet voices overlapping. The wind carried one clear word between them all. That day I packed what little I had and tried to leave. And the road out of the ridge twisted endlessly. Every turn brought me back to the same bridge, the same fog. The forest didn't want me to go. By the 7th attempt, I stopped trying. Now, when night falls, I light a candle and wait. Sometimes I see him standing among the trees, watching. Sometimes when I blink, he's closer. I've stopped checking my reflection. It smiles too often now. And sometimes, when I breathe too deeply, I smell smoke and rain and old wood, the scent of something that isn't finished, something waiting to step fully into this world through the hollow it carved in me. I've stopped counting the days. The forest doesn't follow time anymore. The sun rises too early, then fades before noon. Shadows stretch the wrong way, even when there's no light. I think the ridge bends reality itself, or maybe just my mind. Last night, I dreamt of the mountain splitting open. I saw myself standing at the edge, holding the mask in both hands, my face blank. Inside the crack, something moved, a swarm of blue embers, rising like fireflies made of smoke. When they touched me, I felt heat and cold at once, as though my veins were filled with whispering light. When I woke, the same light flickered under my skin for a moment, just enough to see it before it vanished. I wrote everything down in the journal, though I know now that the pages rewrite themselves. Sometimes new words appear as I sleep. Sometimes whole passages vanish. This morning, the first page read, "The mountain remembers. You belong to it now." The wind outside sounded like chanting. Around noon, I went back to the bridge. The fog never lifts there. You can't see more than a few meters ahead, yet the air feels full of movement, as if hundreds of figures are shifting within it, waiting. I thought I heard footsteps approaching from the other side, slow and uneven. A man emerged from the mist, or what looked like one. He wore the old ranger's uniform, a kind retired decades ago. His name tag read Park Junho, my father's name. He stopped in the center of the bridge, hands trembling slightly. "You shouldn't have stayed," he said. "You're not real. Neither is this place anymore." His eyes were dark, pupils gone. I remembered the story the agency told when my father disappeared here 20 years ago, that he slipped in the rain, drowned in the valley below. But there was never a body. "They found me first," he said, "and they need another." He reached toward me. His hand passed through air, leaving a trail of light. Then he was gone. The fog swallowed him like a wave closing. When I turned back, the bridge behind me had changed. The railings were carved with symbols, the same ones from the masks in a rim. The sound of water below became a deep, rhythmic pulse. Not current, not river, something breathing. Back at the cabin, the door was open again. Inside, the smell of burnt pine filled the air. On the table lay the mask, but it was different. Whole now, smooth, the cracks healed. I picked it up without thinking. The wood was warm. The moment I touched it, I saw the shrine again, but not as ruin. New, bright, full of candles. Monks knelt in rows, faces covered with similar masks. Their voices rose in a chant that seemed older than language. The sound vibrated through my chest, through the walls of the cabin, through everything. A whisper surfaced beneath the chant. Every keeper becomes the kept. The vision shattered. My ears rang. Blood dripped from my nose. I stumbled outside and fell to my knees. The ground pulsed faintly blue again, as if the mountain's heart was beating beneath the soil. I pressed my hand to it. It beat back. That's when I heard the voice again. Softer now, almost kind. "You look for truth. Here it is. You were the vessel, as your father was." The forest tilted, the trees bending inward as though bowing. Faces flickered among the trunks, not human faces, but carved ones, ancient and shifting. They watched me with hollow eyes, waiting. "Take the mask," the voice whispered. "Put it on." I didn't. I ran inside, slammed the door, shoved the table against it. For hours I sat there, hearing footsteps pacing outside, a slow drag like wood across earth. Each step came closer until it stopped just beyond the door. Then came 3 knocks. Not frantic, not threatener, patient. When I finally dared to look through the crack, there was nothing there, only a single blue flame hovering in the dark, steady and still. I thought of my father again, his empty grave, his name still listed as missing. Maybe he stood at this same door once, listening to the same knocking, making the same mistake I was about to. That night, I read through the journal again. The handwriting wasn't mine anymore. It told me things I shouldn't know. The true name of the mountain, the pact that sealed the Docker Bay worm, the ritual that binds them to human keepers. Every century, one ranger is chosen, someone who lives alone on the ridge, someone who sees too much. The Dokabi do not kill their chosen, they inhabit them. The host becomes the mask. The mask becomes the watcher. The watcher guards the gate between worlds until another takes his place. At the bottom of the page, fresh words bled through the paper, as if written from the other side. "It is your turn. Songmin." I didn't remember ever writing my name in this book. The sky turned black without stars. I lit a lantern, though it barely pierced the dark. The walls seemed to breathe again. I heard laughter, quiet, rhythmic, like someone chuckling behind me, but never breathing. When I turned, the air rippled. The mask sat on the table again, though I'd locked it away hours earlier. Its eyes glowed faintly blue. "You can end this," the voice said inside my head. Wear it, and the mountain sleeps again. I pressed my palms against my ears. I'm not your vessel. You already are. The lantern flickered. The shadow on the wall no longer moved with me. It smiled first. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking, waiting for dawn that never came. The world outside the window was nothing but fog and faint shapes drifting between trees. Each one moved a little closer with every blink. When I finally looked down, the mask was gone. Only a faint circle of ash remained, pulsing like a heartbeat. Now, as I write this, I can feel something changing in me. My reflection moves slower than I do. My voice echoes when I speak, as if another speaks with me. The journal bleeds light instead of ink. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear my father's voice, not from memory, but from inside my skull, calm and steady. You never leave the mountain. You become it. The tapping has returned. Beneath the floor, 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. I think I understand now. They were never haunting us. They were calling us home. The forest has stopped pretending to be a forest. It breathes now. When the wind moves through the trees, it's not the sound of leaves, but something deeper, lungs filling with mist. I feel it in my chest, as if we're sharing the same rhythm. The ridge hums beneath my boots. The soil pulses with that faint blue glow that now seeps into everything. The bark, the stones, even the air I breathe. I've accepted I'm not alone here. But what haunts me most is the realization that I may never have been. Last night, I woke to find the cabin door open again. No footsteps this time, just silence. Outside, the fog moved like smoke, swirling in shapes that almost resembled faces. I stood on the threshold, listening. Then I heard it, a low drumming, coming from deep below the earth. It wasn't steady. It had rhythm, but not human rhythm, as if something ancient was trying to remember the sound of a heartbeat. The mask lay on the ground before me. I didn't touch it. I only watched as the blue glow inside its hollow eyes flickered in time with that subterranean pulse. And then the voice came again, soft and clear. You are listening now. Good. I should have run. I should have screamed. Instead, I whispered back, what are you? Memory, it said, and hunger. We are what remains when your kind forgets. I wanted to deny it, but even as I spoke, my own words sounded distant, borrowed. You feed on belief. No, it answered. We feed on silence, on what you bury. The wind moved through the trees, carrying laughter, not malicious, but sorrowful, like the echo of joy long decayed. I realized then that the Dokabi weren't simply monsters. They were remnants, spirits left behind when humans abandoned their faith in the old ways. Their mischief, their cruelty, their beauty, all distorted by centuries of neglect. But if they were forgotten, why me? Why now? Because you still listen, the voice said. Because the mountain remembers you. In the morning, I found carvings outside the cabin, new ones, fresh in the wood of the porch. Circles intersected with symbols, written in Hangul too old for me to read. At the center of each circle was my name. I spent the day trying to leave again. Every path led back to the same clearing, the one with the blackened stones and the dead tree. No matter which direction I took, the forest folded around me, repeating itself. The dark RB weren't keeping me lost. They were showing me something. When night fell, I stood in that clearing again, staring at the tree. The bark shimmered faintly, revealing faint patterns beneath, faces, maybe, or masks, pressed into the wood. I reached out, and the surface shifted like skin. A whisper rose from inside the trunk. Do you see now why we wear faces? Yours are fragile. Ours, remember. The bark split slightly, and from the crack came a sound like someone crying. I stepped back, trembling, until the whisper changed, softer, almost pleading. He wore it too, your father. He kept the gate closed until you opened it again. I wanted to scream. You're lying, are we? The fog thickened until I could barely see my own hands. Shadows moved within it, dozens of figures, all wearing masks like mine, glowing faintly from within. Some wept, some just watched, some just watched. I turned to run, but one of them stepped forward, small, childlike, its mask cracked down the middle. In a trembling voice it said, "Do not let them forget us again." It placed its hand on my chest. For an instant, warmth flooded through me. Not fear, not pain, but understanding. Memories not my own poured into my mind. Fields burning. People kneeling before stone idols. Monks sealing something beneath the earth. The Dakabi, once revered as guardians, punished when the world stopped believing. When I opened my eyes, the clearing was empty. The carvings were gone. The moon hung low and full, but there were two shadows cast at my feet. I spent the next day building a fire in the cabin, burning my journals, the maps, anything that tied me to reason. Each page curled and blackened, releasing smoke that smelled faintly of pine and iron. The mountains seemed to breathe easier as I did it. Maybe that's what it wanted all along, to erase the record of what happened here, so only the memory of it would remain, whispered through fog and silence. Still, one page refused to burn. The ink bled, but the paper held firm. Across its center, a single line appeared, glowing faintly blue. "The keeper does not die. He endures." That night, I didn't fight the voice when it came. I asked it what it wanted from me. "Balance," it said. "You disturbed the silence. You must restore it." How? Wear what he wore, see what he saw, become what he became. The mask waited beside me, warm and pulsing. I touched it, and for the first time I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. When I put it on, the world unfolded. The walls dissolved into mist, and I stood at the edge of the mountain again. The valley below shimmered like glass. I could see the spirits moving through the fog, hundreds of them, radiant and sorrowful, whispering old songs. My father stood among them. He didn't speak, but I felt his voice through the hum of the earth. "The hollow keeps what the world forgets." Behind him, a massive figure rose, neither man nor beast, its form shifting like smoke, its eyes twin embers of blue fire. It was beautiful and terrible, divine and broken. I understood then. This was the first Darkabi, the root of the myth. The spirit born from humanity's first lie, the one that promised never to die as long as someone remembered its name. It reached toward me, and I felt every memory of the ridge flood through me, every ranger before me, every whisper, every laugh in the dark. Their lives folded into mine. Their breaths became my own, and when the spirit's hand touched my face, the mask fused to my skin. The light was blinding, then silence. I awoke at dawn. The mask was gone, yet I still felt it there, under my flesh, pulsing like another heart. The air was clear, the forest alive with birds again. The blue glow had vanished from the soil. It should have been over. But when I spoke aloud, testing my voice, I heard another behind it, deeper, older. "You were the keeper now." I dropped to my knees. My hands were trembling, faint light flickering beneath my veins. The mountain was quiet again, too quiet. The morning after I put on the mask, the air itself felt heavier, not oppressive, but dense, as if filled with things unseen. I stepped outside, and every sound rang louder, clearer. The wind had voices in it. The forest spoke. The pines whispered my name in tones that weren't human. The ground murmured underfoot, alive with hidden movement. The mountain was awake. For For the first time since this began, I wasn't afraid. I felt part of something vast, ancient, and indifferent to human reason. Yet somewhere deep inside, the last fragments of whom I had been, Ranger Song Min, still tried to make sense of it. That part of me was dying. I could feel it. But it clung to every fading memory like a man gripping the edge of a cliff. At noon, I found the journal again, the one I'd burned. It was lying on the porch, intact, unmarked by ash. When I opened it, the pages were blank, all except for the first, where new writing appeared as I watched. When the keeper forgets his face, the mountain will forget his name. The words shimmered faintly before sinking into the paper. Beneath them, a single question formed. Do you remember what you looked like? I didn't. I ran to the small mirror above the wash basin inside the cabin. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't me, not entirely. My eyes shimmered faint blue, veins faintly glowing beneath the skin. My features looked softer, blurred at the edges, like paint dissolving in water. For a moment, I thought the reflection blinked out of rhythm with me. I whispered, "Who am I?" And my reflection smiled. You were the bridge. That night, I heard the laughter again, the same echoing sound I'd once thought belonged to children. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside me. Not a possession, a merging. Each laugh rippled through my ribs like a chord being tuned. Memories that weren't mine began to surface. A woman kneeling before a shrine. A monk carving a face into wood by candlelight. The smell of rain-soaked clay. The taste of blood and rice wine. I realized they weren't visions. They were memories of those who had worn the mask before me. The dark Ibi don't destroy their hosts. They absorb them, fold them into memory. Every keeper remains within the next, a chorus of forgotten selves. I tried to fight it, tried to cling to the memory of my life. The ranger post, the road to the city, my mother's voice, my father's disappearance. But the more I remembered, the more the mountain wept. The fog thickened, blue light rising from the ground like veins. "Do not resist," whispered the voice within. "You'll carry us. We remember through you." 3 nights later, the fog became a storm. The sky turned black without thunder. I felt the mountain tremble, the trees bowing as if in reverence or fear. From deep within the earth came a roar, slow, endless, like stone grinding against stone. I followed the sound, drawn down a slope I'd never seen before. The ground split open, revealing a cavern glowing faintly blue. The air tasted of iron and salt. Inside, walls were covered in carvings, hundreds of faces overlapping each other, each one different, each one screaming silently. In the center stood a pool of black water. When I knelt beside it, the surface rippled. My reflection stared back, no longer human. The faint pattern of wood grain traced my cheeks, my skin darker, my eyes pale as moonlight. I whispered, "Am I one of you now?" The reflection blinked. Its mouth moved before mine did. "You always were. You simply forgot." I felt tears burning down my face, though they weren't tears. They glowed faintly, leaving trails of light. For a moment, I saw the faces within the water. Men, women, monks, hunters, even children. All the keepers before me, staring upward, mouths open as if whispering through me. The air vibrated. A deep voice rose from the depths of the pool. The hollow is filled, the memory restored, the balance returns. Then everything went dark. When we woke, I was back at the cabin. The fire had burned out. My body felt different, lighter, as if hollow. The mask was hanging above the doorway now, its wood gleaming like polished stone. The eyes glowed faintly, breathing in rhythm with mine. Outside, dawn was breaking. The ridge looked untouched, peaceful. No fog, no light. Birds sang again. hesitant at first, then louder. It should have comforted me. It didn't, because in that silence I could hear them, the faces beneath the mountain, whispering softly, endlessly, their voices layered inside my skull. Do not forget us. Do not speak our names. Do not remove the mask within. I don't know what they mean. I no longer know what within refers to. Sometimes I feel movement under my skin, small ripples like breath beneath flesh. The mountain sleeps again, but something inside me remains awake, watching, listening. 2 days later, a team from the forestry department came up the ridge. I heard their radios long before I saw them, distant static, laughter, the crunch of boots. When they reached the cabin, I stayed hidden among the trees. They found the building empty, covered in strange markings. One of them picked up my journal and read aloud, "When the keeper forgets his face, the mountain will forget his name." The man frowned. "Who writes stuff like this?" The others shrugged, nervous. They said they'd heard stories, that the ranger before me disappeared, same as his father, same as the ones before him. They said the mountain was cursed. One joked about Korean goblins, and they all laughed, uneasy. Their laughter hurt. I didn't understand why until I realized something. When they spoke of Dark Abbey, I could hear them hearing me, their voices echoing inside my head as if through the mountain itself. Their words woke something. The wind shifted. The birds fell silent. The earth under their feet vibrated softly. One of them turned, shivering. "Do you feel that?" I did. "Let's get out of here," another said. They left quickly. I stayed in the trees until their truck disappeared down the road. The ridge exhaled once, long and slow. Then the silence returned. And I knew I was not guarding the mountain anymore. The mountain was guarding me. Now when I sleep, I dream of faces. Thousands of them, stacked like roots, murmuring through the dark. Each one asks the same question, over and over. "Do you remember us?" When I wake, the echoes fade, but one word remains carved into my thoughts like stone. It no longer sounds foreign. It sounds like my name. The air no longer feels like air. It feels like breath. The mountain inhales through the valleys and exhales through the cracks beneath my cabin. Every gust carries whispers that slide into my lungs, twisting through me until I no longer know if I am breathing the mountain or if the mountain is breathing me. The transformation is slow, subtle. It started with small things. I no longer leave footprints in the mud. My reflection sometimes lags behind. Animals no longer flee when I appear. They stare, heads tilted as if recognizing something older in me. At night, the fog gathers near the cabin, forming faint silhouettes that never fully solidify. Some have masks, some don't. They linger in the threshold of light, neither coming nor leaving. They whisper in the old tongue, the one that feels familiar now, though I never learned it. Sometimes I answer back. Yesterday, I found a new trail where none existed before. It led uphill, deeper into the ridge, to a part of the forest I'd never seen. The trees there grew impossibly tall, their trunks twisted, roots weaving together like veins. The light was dim, bluish, as though the sun no longer reached this place. At the top stood a small gate made of stone and wood. It was carved with the same markings as the mask. Hanging from it were dozens of talismans, prayer papers, brittle with age. Each one bore the same 4 characters, faded but legible. "Do not forget." I reached out and the papers crumbled to dust at my touch. Beyond the gate, the path descended into a hollow, filled with mist that glowed faintly from within. I could feel the heartbeat of the earth again, slow, steady, alive. The sound was not outside, but inside my head, sinking with my pulse until I could no longer tell which belonged to me. Then I heard a child's voice. "You came back." I turned. The little figure from before stood there again, the cracked mask tilting slightly. Behind it, dozens of faint blue lights hovered in the air, drifting closer like fireflies. "What is this place?" I asked. "The heart," the child said, "where memory sleeps, where the first face still breathes." "And why me?" "Because you remember." Its voice trembled with something like sorrow. "Humans stopped remembering. You came to watch, to guard, but you listened. The hollow heard you listening. Now it wants to live again." Before I could speak, the child raised its hand. The mist stirred. Shapes emerged, figures moving through time, flickering like film. Monks burning scrolls, villagers fleeing the mountain, a fire consuming the temple, the mask falling into the mud. Each scene rippled through the air, then dissolved into smoke. "They sealed us in silence," the child whispered. "But silence grows hungry. You have to feed it." "Feed it how?" "With memory, with names." It pointed at me. "Start with yours." When I awoke, I was back at the cabin. My journal lay open on the floor, covered in new writing lines upon lines of Hangul I didn't recognize. But the meaning pulsed inside my head like instinct. It wasn't text. It was calling. I tried to speak aloud to resist the words, but my voice fractured, half human, half echo. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows. From within it came hundreds of voices murmuring my name, stretching it, reshaping it, until it no longer sounded like Song Min, but something older, something not human. That's when I realized the Dokabi don't steal faces, they return them. Every human carries a fragment of their memory, every forgotten story, every suppressed myth. They gather it back through us, one listener at a time. The hollow wasn't a prison, it was a mouth, and now it had learned to breathe again through me. I tried to write to the agency that night. My hands trembled as I typed, but the words refused to stay. The screen glitched, letters rearranging themselves into sentences I didn't write. "The keeper is gone. The mountain speaks." I pulled the plug, threw the laptop into the fire. The flames flickered blue. The walls of the cabin began to pulse, wood creaking as if exhaling. Outside, something enormous shifted in the fog, slow, deliberate. The ground shook. I heard laughter again, but this time it was everywhere. Inside the trees, the soil, even the air. The sound was not cruel. It was joyous, ancient. "We remember," they whispered. At last we remember. The sky split open with lightning. Not fire, but the same blue radiance that had haunted me since the first night. It poured over the ridge like water, washing everything in silence. I could feel them moving through me, around me, within me, a tide of forgotten things returning home. Then suddenly calm. The light faded. The forest was whole again. The mask hung above the door, still and silent. I touched my face, smooth skin, no wood, no glow. But I could feel it underneath, like something sleeping behind bone. In the mirror, my reflection looked human, almost. When I blinked, it didn't. And behind me, in the glass, stood the child. "You remembered it," said softly. "Now we can rest." I turned, but there was no one there. Only the forest outside, breathing quietly in rhythm with me. Now, when people hike up the ridge, they say they hear laughter at night. Some claim they see blue lanterns moving through the fog. They think it's the wind or tricks of light. I let them believe that. The mountain no longer hungers. The hollow no longer cries. It only listens, quietly, patiently, through me. I am its echo, its keeper, its memory. And when the wind howls through the trees at night, carrying faint laughter, and the scent of pine and rain. I know it isn't the forest speaking. It's the hollow breathing through every face that still remembers. It began again with the sound of rain, but it wasn't falling from the sky. It came from the ground, soft at first, like water seeping upward through roots, then louder, pulsing, rhythmic. The soil trembled beneath the cabin, the same heartbeat I'd felt before returning, heavier, closer. I stepped outside, barefoot, and the world had changed. The forest was awake. Mist rolled like smoke between the trees. The moon burned behind the clouds, low and swollen, its light tinged blue. Every surface glimmered faintly, bark, stone, my skin, as though the mountain was made of breathing light. I walked toward the ridge without knowing why. My body moved on its own, following the rhythm underfoot, as if the mountain itself were guiding me. When I reached the clearing, the dead tree had blossomed. Its branches were full of pale flowers that emitted a dull, internal glow. From their petals dripped water, thick and red, not blood, but something older, metallic and sweet. The smell filled the air like incense, and in that light I saw them again. Hundreds of shapes gathered in silence. Some still wore their masks, others no longer needed them. Their faces were neither alive nor dead, just remembered. They watched me without moving. Behind them the air shimmered, and from it emerged the massive form I had seen once before, the first door cabbie, the one who had touched my father, and now had come for me. It bowed, or maybe the world bent around it. The mouth opens, it said, voice like shifting mountains. The silence hungers. I thought it was at peace, I whispered. Peace is forgetting, it answered. But you remembered. You made us breathe again. Now we must feed. On what? On stories. On belief. On you. The faces around me began to flicker. Every past keeper, every monk, every villager who had once worshipped or feared this place. Their voices rose together, low and resonant, a chant vibrating through the air and through me. Dokabi is memory. Memory is blood. The words sank into my skin. My chest ached. I felt light pouring from my eyes, my mouth, my hands. The air rippled as if underwater. My heartbeat faltered, then synchronized with the mountain's rhythm, one steady, endless pulse. What happens now? I asked. Now, said the first Arkabi, we speak through you. The ground split open beneath the tree. The hollow yawned wide, a perfect circle of darkness that swallowed sound itself. Wind rushed inward, but it made no noise. The silence was complete, terrifying. I saw inside it, not void, but reflection. A world identical to ours, inverted, shimmering like a mirage. The Dokabi stepped toward it one by one, merging into the glow, their shapes dissolving like smoke into water. Then the child appeared again beside me. It will close soon, they said. When it does, your world will forget us again. Isn't that what you wanted? Rest. There is no rest. Only remembrance. Someone must stay to remember. I understood then what my father had meant, why he never left, why I never could. The child reached out, touching my chest. My heart stilled. Now you keep the hollow. I looked down. My veins burned blue beneath the skin. My reflection in the hollow stared back. Not me, not human, not entirely spirit. Something in between. The mountains shuddered. The light dimmed. The hollow began to close. When I woke, I was lying on the ridge. The forest was quiet again, untouched. The blossoms were gone. The ground smooth, as if nothing had ever grown there. The tree was just a stump of blackened wood. The sky was grey. Dawn. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, until I looked at my hands. The faint lines of wood grain ran beneath the skin. When I flexed my fingers, they creaked softly, like bending branches. My shadow wavered, not quite matching my shape. and when I breathed, the fog around me stirred in rhythm, inhaling, exhaling. I wasn't entirely here anymore, nor entirely gone. Weeks passed, or maybe days. Time has no weight now. Hikers began returning to the ridge. They came laughing, shouting, unaware. At night they built small fires and told stories about the ranger who vanished. They say sometimes they hear knocking under the ground, like wood tapping from below. They say blue lights move between the trees when the wind dies. They say if you whisper a name into the fog, it whispers it back, but not in your voice. I watch them from the edge of the forest. They never see me, or if they do, they mistake me for mist. I no longer hunger or sleep. I only listen. I only remember. One night, I saw a little girl wander from her campfire, chasing something that glowed. I followed quietly, unseen. The light she chased was a lantern, old and cracked, the same one I had once mistaken for human. It drifted to the riverbank and stopped. She reached for it. I whispered, softly, in the voice that wasn't mine anymore, "Don't look." She froze. The lantern blinked out. The forest went still. Then she turned and ran back toward the fire. When she was gone, I picked up the lantern and placed it by the water. Its faint blue glow returned, rippling across the surface. The reflection in the water smiled back. My reflection, but older, calmer, infinite. "It begins again," the voice within said. Months later, a new ranger arrived. He found my old cabin, abandoned but intact. Inside he discovered the journal, blank except for the first page. It read, "When the keeper forgets his face, the mountain will forget his name." He took the book, curious. That night, as he sat by the fire reading it, the wind outside shifted. The forest grew quiet, and from far beyond the ridge came the faint sound of laughter. Now, when the moon turns blue, the mountain exhales, and I feel them stirring again. All the faces, all the names, all the echoes. I speak for them. I breathe for them. I am their hollow, their silence, their memory. The world above will forget, but the mountain will not, because it remembers through me. And when you walk alone through the fog and see a blue light between the trees, do not follow it. Do not look too long, because if you do, you might hear the voice that once was mine whispering from the dark. You remember now, don't you? Then softly from the wind itself,